My wife cheated on me with her boss, and now he's claiming half our $750, $0 house and $300, $0 in savings. Didn't expect our project to turn into a legal battle over betrayal and money. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing this down, but here we are. My name's Mike, and honestly, I still can't wrap my head around how everything spiraled out of control so fast. It all started when I noticed little things: her phone ringing late at night, her being mysteriously secretive about her emails, and her suddenly getting defensive whenever I asked about her day. At first, I thought maybe she was just stressed at work or dealing with some personal stuff. But then, I found out it was something way worse. It was a Thursday evening when I decided to check her phone. Not because I was paranoid. Okay, maybe I was a little, but because she'd been acting weird lately, and I was tired of feeling like I was walking on eggshells. I saw a string of messages between her and her boss, David. The messages weren't just professional chatter. They were full of flirtatious comments, emojis, and plans to meet outside of work. I saw her say things like, "Can't wait to see you tonight," and "Let's make this a night to remember," and I swear my stomach dropped. I couldn't believe it. My wife Anna was cheating on me with her boss. The guy's name is David, a smooth-talking, arrogant bastard who always acted like he owned the place. And Anna, she's always been a bit of a bitchy, manipulative, and good at hiding her true colors. But seeing those messages was like a punch to the gut. I'd always suspected she might have been having an affair, but reading it confirmed everything. I didn't just get mad. I felt betrayed on every level. We had this beautiful house worth about $750, $0, and we had $300, $0 in savings. We'd been planning to expand our business, retire early, and spend our lives traveling. And now I was staring at the possibility that she was planning to take everything from me, even if she didn't say it outright. I needed to confront her, but I also knew I had to be smart about it. The next day, I waited until she got home from work. She was her usual bitchy self, snapping at the dog, ignoring my questions about her day. I didn't say anything at first. I just handed her her phone and she looked at me like I was crazy. "What's this?" I asked, voice steady but tense. She glanced at the screen, her face draining of color. She tried to brush it off, saying I was overreacting, that I was being paranoid, but I knew better. I told her I'd seen the messages. Her face twisted into a defensive smirk. "Oh, come on, Mike, it's just sex. It doesn't mean anything, you're overthinking everything." She lied so convincingly I almost believed her for a second, but I didn't. I knew I wasn't imagining things. The worst part wasn't just the betrayal, it was how she lied about it, how she dismissed my feelings like I was just some fool who couldn't see what was right in front of him. She said I was insecure, jealous, that she loved me and would never do anything to hurt me. But I knew better now. The woman I married was gone. She was someone who could cheat, lie, and manipulate her way through life without a second thought. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing. I kept thinking about everything: our house, our savings, the future we'd planned. All of it felt like it was slipping away. I was furious, heartbroken, and confused. How could she do this? How could she lie so easily? And what was I supposed to do now? I knew I had to make a decision, but I didn't have a clear plan, only a storm of emotions and the burning desire to get some answers. I kept telling myself that I deserved better, that I shouldn't let her get away with this. But I also knew that revenge wasn't going to be simple. It wasn't just about catching her in the act. It was about what she was trying to take from me. She thought she could cheat and lie her way out of it, but she was wrong. I was going to fight for what was mine, no matter what it took. That's where I am now, just trying to figure out what comes next. The morning after I found out about Anna's affair, everything felt like it was in slow motion. I woke up with a heavy weight pressing down on my chest, and I couldn't shake the feeling that my world was about to change forever. I kept replaying the night before, the look on her face when I handed her her phone, her stupid smirk, the way she lied so effortlessly. It made me realize I couldn't just confront her and hope for the best. I had to do something smarter, something that would give me the upper hand. First thing I did was dig into her phone's details more. I was careful, no accidental slips, no obvious signs that I was snooping. I went through her emails, her social media, and her messages with David. I wanted everything. Turns out, she'd been seeing him for almost 3 months, sneaking around behind my back, meeting him late at night, and even lying about where she was going. I found messages where she called him her secret lover, and he responded with "can't wait to make you mine officially." That was the moment I knew I had to get serious. But I didn't just want to catch her. I wanted to make sure I had leverage. So I started collecting evidence, screenshots of the messages, copies of emails, even some of her bank transactions that linked her to David's office. I knew that if this went to court or to a lawyer, I'd need all the proof I could get. I also started thinking about the house and the money. We had a prenup, but she'd always been the kind of person who tried to push boundaries. I needed to prepare for a fight. In the meantime, Anna kept acting like nothing was wrong. She'd come home, make her usual snide comments, and try to brush off my questions. When I pressed her about her late nights, she'd roll her eyes and say, "You're just jealous, Mike. Honestly, you're insecure. I'm working late, that's all." She even called me paranoid when I asked if she was cheating. That's typical Anna: blame me, call me crazy, and act like I'm overreacting. But I knew her better than that now. I saw her true colors. I started planning my next move. I knew I couldn't just confront her again without proof, and I definitely couldn't let her know I was onto her. So I hired a private investigator. I wanted to see if I could catch her in the act, or at least get some more concrete evidence. It was a risky move, but I figured if she was cheating, she'd slip up eventually. I also talked to a lawyer, someone who specialized in divorce and property disputes. I wanted to know what I was up against if she tried to claim half the house or the savings. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the way she lied, manipulated, and acted like she was entitled to everything. She'd always been the type to think she deserved the world, and now she was trying to take what I'd worked so hard for. The house, the savings, everything we had built together. I knew I had to fight for it. I couldn't let her walk away with half of my life's work. One day, while I was out, I caught her leaving David's apartment. It was late, around 11 p.m., and she looked flushed, guilty, and nervous. I followed her in my car, but I didn't confront her then. I just watched, taking mental notes. When she finally came home, she acted normal, like nothing had happened, but I knew better. I had the evidence. I had the leverage, and I was starting to realize this wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about protecting what was mine. That night, I sat in my office and made a decision. I was going to confront her with everything, but I was also preparing for the worst. If she thought she was going to get away with this, she was dead wrong. This was about justice, about making sure she paid for her lies and betrayal. I wasn't just going to let her take my house and savings without a fight. I was going to make her regret ever crossing me. I knew the legal battle was coming, and I had to be ready. I started gathering my documents, organizing everything I had collected, and making plans. It was clear now that Anna was not the woman I thought she was. She was manipulative, selfish, and greedy. And if she thought she could cheat, lie, and steal her way out of this, she had another thing coming. I was no fool, and I wasn't about to let her walk away with everything she wanted. This was only the beginning. After I had all my evidence collected, I realized I needed to act fast but carefully. Anna was still acting like everything was fine, but I knew her mask was starting to crack. She was getting more defensive, more aggressive when I pressed her about her whereabouts. I had to be strategic. I started looking into the legal side of things more seriously. I spoke with a lawyer, someone who had seen these kinds of cases before. The last thing I wanted was her pulling some sneaky move to claim half the house or the savings, even though we had a prenup. The lawyer told me that since I had proof of her affair, screenshots, emails, witnesses, I had a good shot at protecting my assets. But she'd try to spin it, say I was abusive or controlling, anything to get her way. That's when I decided I needed to get ahead of her. I made a plan to confront her with everything, but I also knew I couldn't do it alone. I hired a private investigator to keep an eye on her, just in case she tried to make a move to hide her assets or run off. I needed to be prepared for anything. Meanwhile, Anna kept up her act. But I noticed her becoming more paranoid. She was checking her phone constantly, deleting messages, and even changing her routines. I caught her on a few occasions looking stressed, like she was trying to cover her tracks. It was clear she knew I was onto her and she was panicking. That's when I decided to push her a little further, see how far she'd go, how much she'd reveal. One afternoon, I waited for her to come home from work. When she finally stepped inside, I was sitting in the living room, calm but firm. I laid out all the evidence I had, screenshots of her messages with David bank statements, even some of her secret emails. Her face turned white, and she tried to deny everything, saying I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. But I didn't back down. I told her I knew everything, that I wasn't going to let her steal my house or my savings without a fight. Her reaction was pure bitchy arrogance. She scoffed, rolled her eyes, and said, "Mike, you're overreacting. This is all just some misunderstanding. I love you and I would never cheat on you." But I saw through her bullshit. I knew she was lying. She always did. I also knew she was trying to manipulate me, make me doubt what I'd seen, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. I told her that I was done playing her games, that I'd already spoken to a lawyer, and that I was prepared to take this to court if I had to. Her face twisted in anger and she snapped back. "You think you can threaten me? I'll ruin you, Mike. You think you're the only one who has secrets. I've got my own plans." That was the moment I realized she was dangerous, more than just a cheating wife. She was willing to fight dirty, and she was already trying to spin her lies. Over the next few days, I kept gathering more evidence, making sure I had everything documented. I also started planning how I'd approach her in court, what I'd say, how I'd protect my assets. I wasn't just fighting for the house or the money, I was fighting for my dignity. I couldn't let her walk all over me, especially after she'd betrayed me so badly. The tension in the house was thick. She kept trying to guilt trip me, saying I was ruining her life, that she loved me and it was all a mistake. But I knew better. I knew she'd been planning this for a while. I could see it in her eyes, the way she avoided eye contact, the way she'd get defensive at the slightest question. She thought she could manipulate her way out of this, but I was done being naive. One night, I decided I'd had enough of her lies. I sat her down and told her that I knew about her affair, that I had the evidence, and that I was going to protect what's mine. She looked at me, her bitchy smirk returning, and said, "You're just jealous, Mike. You're insecure. Maybe if you weren't so controlling, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere." That was the last straw. I realized she was never going to change, never going to admit to what she did. And if I wanted to keep what I had to be ready to fight for it. So I did. I prepared myself for the legal battle ahead, knowing that she'd try everything to keep the house and the savings. I made sure I had the upper hand, and I was ready to go to war. Because at the end of the day, I wasn't just fighting for money or property. I was fighting for my dignity, my future, and to finally put an end to her lies. I didn't know how it would all turn out, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let her take what I worked so hard for without a fight. The day I finally decided to move forward with everything was the day I knew I couldn't hold back anymore. I'd been gathering evidence, talking to lawyers, and watching Anna's every move for weeks. It was like walking on thin ice, waiting for her to slip up. I knew her temper, her manipulative side, and how she loved to spin stories. But I also knew I had enough to prove she'd been unfaithful, and that was going to be my leverage. I scheduled a meeting with my lawyer, a sharp guy named David who specialized in divorce and property disputes. I wanted to know exactly what I could do, what I should do, and how to protect my assets. He told me that if I could prove her infidelity, I'd have a solid case to fight for the house and the savings. But he warned me she'd try to claim she was entitled to half because we were married, no matter what. That's when I realized I had to be even more careful. Meanwhile, Anna continued her acting like everything was normal. But I saw her slipping. She was more paranoid, more defensive. She'd check her phone obsessively, delete messages, and sometimes even accuse me of spying on her. I kept my cool, knowing that if I showed weakness, she'd see it as an opening. So I stayed quiet, patient, and kept my plan in motion. One evening, I decided to confront her directly. I told her I knew about her affair with David, that I had the evidence, and that I wasn't going to let her destroy what we had. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk, her eyes full of defiance. "You're just insecure," she spat. "You're jealous, Mike. I love you, but sometimes I need more. Maybe you're the one who's not enough for me." I felt like I'd been punched. That's her classic move: deny, lie, blame me. But I had enough. I told her I was done playing her games. I laid out the evidence on the table, screenshots, bank statements, witness accounts from the investigator. Her eyes widened for a moment, then she recovered, trying to look innocent. "That's all just lies," she said. "You're making this up. You're desperate." But I knew better. I knew her tricks. I told her I'd already spoken to a lawyer and that I was ready to take this to court if she kept denying the truth. She started getting angry, her bitchy attitude flaring. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Well, I'll make sure you regret this, Mike. I'll take everything from you, your house, your money, everything." That's when I realized she was planning to fight dirty. I had to be prepared for her to do anything, try to hide assets, lie about her income, or even try to turn the court against me. In the days that followed, I kept collecting more proof, even hiring a private investigator to keep tabs on her. I wanted to see if she'd do something reckless, like try to transfer money or hide evidence. Sure enough, she started acting more frantic, changing routines, deleting emails, even trying to get rid of her phone. I knew she was panicking. One morning I caught her trying to sneak her phone out of the house. I followed her, and when she didn't notice, I saw her meet with David again. That was it. I had everything I needed. I took pictures, recorded their exchange, and knew I was finally in the driver's seat. It was clear she thought she could manipulate her way out of this mess, but I wasn't going to let that happen. I'd played it smart, kept my cool, and waited for the right moment. Now I was ready to really fight for what's mine. She could threaten, lie, or try to guilt-trip me all she wanted. I had the evidence, and I had the law on my side. That night I sat down and drafted a formal separation notice. I told her I was filing for divorce, that I was claiming full ownership of the house, and that I was going to fight her for every penny. Her reaction was priceless. She started crying, screaming, and calling me a terrible person. But I didn't care. I'd had enough of her lies and manipulation. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about standing up for myself and protecting my future. I knew she'd try to spin everything, but I was prepared for that. I had my evidence, my lawyer, and my resolve. I wasn't going to let her take everything without a fight. The next step was going to court, and I was determined to walk out of it with what's rightfully mine. I wasn't just fighting for the house or the money. I was fighting to reclaim my dignity and put an end to her betrayal once and for all. The court date came faster than I expected, and I was ready, at least as ready as I could be. I had all my evidence organized: screenshots of her messages with David, bank records, witness statements from the investigator, and my lawyer's prepared arguments. I knew Anna would try everything to spin her story, deny everything, and paint me as the bad guy. But I also knew I had the truth on my side, and I wasn't about to back down. As I sat in the courtroom, I could see her sitting there, her bitchy smirk replaced by a look of pure defiance. She thought she was going to walk out of this with everything, that she'd manipulate the judge the way she manipulated me for years. But I was determined not to let that happen. The judge called the case, and I took the stand first. I laid out everything: how I discovered her affair, the evidence I collected, her lies, and her manipulative behavior. When Anna's turn came, she tried to act innocent, acting like I was the one making things up. She everything, claiming she was just working late, that David was just a friend, and that I was paranoid. She even threw in some tears, trying to guilt me into dropping the case. But I stayed firm. I presented my evidence, showing her messages, her bank transfers, and the investigator's reports. I watched her face fall when she realized her lies weren't working. The judge asked her questions, and she stumbled a little under pressure. She tried to say she didn't remember anything, that I was just jealous, that she loved me. But I knew her better. I saw her sneaking around, her secret meetings, and her attempts to hide her assets. I also presented the proof that she'd been trying to transfer money to a private account, something I caught her doing late at night when she thought I was asleep. That was the nail in the coffin. The judge listened carefully, then took a break to deliberate. When he returned, he made his decision. I was awarded full ownership of the house, and the court ordered Anna to pay me a substantial settlement from the savings to cover her cheating and her attempts to hide assets. She looked furious, but I felt a strange sense of relief. I'd fought hard, and finally I was getting some justice. But the aftermath wasn't just about the legal victory. Anna didn't take it well. She screamed, called me every name in the book, and even threatened to ruin me financially. She tried to accuse me of abuse, of controlling her, but the court saw through her lies. She was furious because she'd lost control, and her bitchy attitude turned into pure rage. She even tried to threaten me with more legal battles, but I'd already hired a team of lawyers to make sure she couldn't just come back and take what she wanted. In the days that followed, I moved out of the house. It was strange walking away from what I thought was my life, but I knew it was for the best. I had to start over, rebuild, and forget about her and the betrayal. I sold some of her stuff, things I knew she'd try to use against me, and transferred the money from the settlement into my own account. I also started looking at new places, trying to rebuild what I lost. The hardest part was the emotional toll. I felt betrayed, angry, and humiliated, but I also felt a strange sense of liberation. I'd finally taken control of my life again. I realized that her betrayal wasn't just about the affair, it was about her greed and manipulation. And I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not this time. Looking back, I learned a lot. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's almost impossible to repair. But I also learned that standing up for yourself, even in the worst situations, is the only way to regain some sense of dignity. Anna's betrayal was a wake-up call. I'll never ignore red flags again. And if there's one thing I'd tell anyone in my position, don't let them take everything without a fight. Protect yourself, gather evidence, and fight for what's right. Because in the end, justice isn't just about money or property. It's about reclaiming your life and your peace of mind. After everything settled and I managed to move on, I spent a lot of time reflecting on what I'd been through. It's crazy how betrayal can shake your entire world, but in the end, I realized I came out stronger. The house, the savings, the legal victory, all of it was important, but what mattered most was reclaiming my life and my sense of self. Anna's betrayal taught me that people aren't always who they seem, and trust has to be earned, not just given away blindly. Living through her lies and manipulations was painful, but it also opened my eyes to what I truly value. I learned that protecting what's yours isn't just about assets. It's about your dignity, your boundaries, and your peace of mind. I've started focusing on myself, working out more, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected, and building a new future without her dragging me down. It's not easy, and some days are still tough, but I'm finally at a place where I can breathe again. Looking back, I wish I'd trusted my instincts sooner. I wish I hadn't ignored the little red flags, the late-night excuses, the secretive behavior. But I also know that sometimes you have to go through the storm to see clearly. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: don't ignore your gut. When something feels off, dig deeper. Protect yourself, gather your evidence, and don't be afraid to fight for what's rightfully yours. For those who find themselves in similar situations, whether it's infidelity, betrayal, or just feeling like your life is being manipulated, I want you to know this: you're not alone. And more importantly, you don't have to accept being a victim. Stand up, be smart, and fight for your peace. It's not easy and it's going to hurt, but in the end, you'll come out stronger, knowing you did everything you could to protect yourself. As for me, I've learned that life goes on. The house is mine again, and I've started building a new one built on honesty, respect, and self-worth. I don't dwell on the past anymore. Instead, I focus on what's ahead. I've got new goals, new dreams, and a renewed sense of confidence. And I know that if I can survive this kind of betrayal, I can handle whatever life throws at me next. So to everyone out there dealing with betrayal or betrayal's aftermath, stay strong, trust yourself, gather your evidence, fight for what's yours, and never forget you owe it to yourself to live a life free of lies and manipulation. Because at the end of the day, nobody is going to do it for you. You've got to take control. And if you do, I promise, you'll come out on the other side stronger than ever.